This is the StoryWorks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft. Because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. Hello and welcome to this week's StoryWorks Roundtable. Today, Robert, Kathryn, and I are talking about titles, good titles, bad titles, how to pick them, get feedback on them. Robert, you proposed the topic, so I'm just going to let you take us into it.
It's funny enough, in the non-fiction world, it's really easy. I just ran Google ads and saw which one got clicked on the most, and it wasn't the one I thought. So that was interesting. So I think leaning more into fiction, which is where it gets a little bit, nebulous, really. I think when you can get very clever as an author and thinking, oh, this would just be the best title. But it can be too obscure. And if you're writing genre fiction, I think it's worth browsing the top categories just to see how authors pitch their title to bring in. I mean, we've all seen a string of bestsellers, for example, that, if you put girl in the title, all of a sudden, you're much more likely to pick up a deal. But that's a fad. So that's different to what I'm talking about in terms of genre signaling.
Right.
And so, for example, I thought quite carefully about my science fiction titles, much more carefully than I did about my original middle grade, where I just thought of something I thought that was really clever. But the science fiction stuff, I really wanted to think about what, the first book is called Constellation. And so, I still don't think it's the best title, but it's clearly going to be somewhere in that it invokes galaxy or something. So, if you named a book Galactic Futures, you probably wouldn't be expecting to be entering into a literary fiction, deep point of view kind of emotional journey, I think.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming at. And again, being involved in writing descriptions for books, you'll often see authors who have a fantastic story and they've completely missed the mark with the title. It's just going to misdirect, which is a shame.
Yeah. So, okay, you hit on two key things. One is landing on a title that's going to target readers in a specific genre. And then the other thing is the title needs to say something about the story that we're entering. There's a connection to that story. So let's go with those. Do you want to talk about the genre piece of it first? Kind of genre targeting? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of them are really, really easy. I mean, if you've got the whole mail order brides genre, for example, it's really easy to write titles for because you've got, the sheriff and the teacher. They're very simple because it speaks straight away. And science fiction, again, fairly straightforward, I think, for the most part. You can lean into either the pew space opera side of things, or you can lean into the speculative fiction where it might be the robot who dreamed, or so it's quite easy to, I think, signal it. Where it gets harder is in something that's, say, a literary romance, but they all I think there are a lot of tropes in titles. And you have to scan down the list, and a lot of authors, if they're writing in series, will use their series name to signal the genre, obviously, so the Shifter Brothers series, for example, or, I don't know if they exist, but I'm making these things
They
up,
should. That should exist. Yes. Yeah. When I was doing the Ska Call books, I decided every title would have "in Ska Call" in the title, and that would be my series marker instead of having a separate tagline for the series. And so it's Murder in Ska Call and Dark Corners in Ska Call. And then I forget, because it's been so long since I worked on it, what the third book's title was, but it was something in Ska Call, and thinking of keywords that say mystery, right? So murder, dark corners, you want your words to evoke something of the genre. You wouldn't call it, daisies, fields of flowers in Ska Call, right? It wouldn't, or tender hearts in Ska Call. It would misrepresent the genre to the reader. So even if it fit the story, it wouldn't fit the genre.
Well, and I don't think you would name your house Skog Hall if you weren't writing a mystery either. Like, the town that you're in, right? Skog Hall is, it itself gives kind of those pointy, creepy vibes just by the name of the place, right?
Right.
So you'd have Tender Hearts in Skog Hall still sounds like something might go terribly wrong.
Right. Yes, which is a great point, because words have an oral quality to them, and you know, consonants are different than vowels, and different hard consonants are different than sibilants and such. And so yeah, you're right, and I wasn't even really thinking about that, but Skog Hall, I certainly listened to the words I was stringing together, and Skog Hall has very different sound. It lands with us differently than even Stockholm or Sweden. It's you know, the town was founded by Swedish immigrants. So, yeah, but like Sweden is a very soft word.
Yeah. I mean,
Stockholm ends with that nice soft M, right?
Yeah, you got murder in Skog Hall would be different to murder in Tampa, for example.
Yes.
Or, you know,
the octogenarians were up to no good there in Florida.
But if it say it was the same book and it wasn't called Murder in Tampa, it was called Swamp Tension, you know, then you might have a completely different feel for it. So I think it is not necessarily. A lot of us will have a working title when we're immersed in our books, and I think it's wise to maybe come back to and say, now, does that really evoke A, the genre, and B, the theme, and am I using power words? Am I using words that are semantically packed,
right?
Unpack in the reader's mind to something that means more than just those three words together. You know, a lot of the Robert Ludlum titles, for example, you know, have it usually starts with a the and two words. You know, so the Bourne Conspiracy, the Washington Ultimatum, which is not one of his, but you know, that kind of, you know, you string those things together and you know, okay, that's going to be some kind of politico spy thriller,
right?
Right.
So and it can help even, I think, when you're writing as well, if you do really got, you know, that title, because sometimes the title comes first.
Yes.
like that one scene. You go, oh, I've got this great idea for a book, and what is it? Well, I've only got the name.
Yes. Yeah, I have a title I came up with years ago that I haven't lost. It's still in my head. I have no story for it. But that title someday is coming into play. Yeah. With literary fiction or contemporary fiction, you mentioned theme, Robert, and also unpacking the meaning of the title. So with The Stone's Throw, that's literary fiction, and there is a line somewhere in the novel about like when you throw a stone into a pond and the ripples go out, so our actions ripple through other people's lives. That's the imagery. I'm sure I wrote it much better than that in the actual novel, but you know, I'd think, what kind of imagery do I want my title to evoke? What, you know, where is that kind of Easter egg when the reader encounters the connecting point in the actual text itself and goes, oh, right, there it is. So that unpacking and thematic connection, I think, is more important when you aren't dealing with a specific genre, you know, where you need to target the Western or the romance or the mystery.
Right, and that Easter egg of putting your title within the body. I don't know if anybody has ever watched the YouTube channel Cinema Sins, but they have a running gag where every time the movie's title shows up in the movie, they say roll credits. Because there it is, right there. Boom. So that happens a lot, where you'll find the movie title or the book title embedded within the story itself.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's again so individual, isn't it? So it could come out, it could sort of strike you and you think, oh god, that's the title. You know, that's fantastic.
Right.
And that's got to be it. And I think it's worth double checking those moments to then come back to it. Well, okay, does that fit the theme? Does that fit the genre? Or is it just me being a clever author?
Right.
who wants to say, yeah, when they get to this bit, they'll see why I named it that.
Yeah, and does it affect the reader the way you intend
Right.
for it too? Because if you're being the clever author, maybe you are connecting dots in your head that aren't really going to connect for the reader,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Because you're creating your title with the context of knowing the whole story, and the reader encounters the title with no context other than maybe a book cover, right? And then a blurb. I was just watching How to Get Away with Murder, a Shonda Rhimes TV series, and it's in the opening scene of the whole series. You know, the main character walks into a college classroom and writes on the board in chalk How to Get Away with Murder, and it's a legal thriller to do a lot with getting away with murder. So you've got your theme, you've got your genre, you've got your title. It's not even an Easter egg because it's just like handed to you in the opening. But
It's like the premise.
it is, yeah, exactly. It is the premise. It's very clear, and it's fun. It's also entertaining to have that kind of foreknowledge of this is the ride we're getting on.
Yeah, I think they're great when they're really explanatory titles, because they run the whole gamut, don't they? Things that are extremely obvious through to things that are really obscure, and it's challenging if you want a very obscure title because you want to have some intrigue landing for the reader. I think that's the kind of thing you've got to do a bit of test marketing and see how that does land for a few people. So, you know, if I had a book and I titled it Total Obscurity, for example, I mean, I don't know, you know, could be about a young adult wallflower who just feels like she never fits in. Could be about an assassin who, you know, remains anonymous the whole way through. It could be about a space race. I don't know. You just don't know, do you, really? So,
right.
And at that point, obviously, you've got other things coming in. You've got your cover and blurb and things like that. So we're not acting completely in isolation here. But I do think that we can use our wordsmithing skills to come up with something evocative for the most part.
Right, and I really think that that it's a mistake to rely on the imagery of the cover and the blurb or other elements to do your work for you. You know, it's like when you open a story, your opening paragraph should not depend upon the reader having already taken in information about the story through the blurb and through the title and through the cover and through the reviews and all that stuff, right? And so if your book was, you know, found in a used bookstore or in a little free library and the covers were ripped off and the spine was ripped off and all you had were the manuscript pages, that other stuff shouldn't matter. I should see that, you know, the like frontispiece with the title and go, oh, that's intriguing. What's on page 1? Right? For me,
Sophie's choice.
Yeah,
obviously
that's
science fiction.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's a great example. What choice does a woman named Sophie have to make? Something so compelling, so life-altering, that it is the title of the story, and I want to know more. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think it's a fine art. It's one of those things, I suppose, that we might be being a bit blasé here and saying, you know, you should really focus on it and make it this big thing. But actually, knowing how much authors fret about even writing a sales description for their book, the title is probably even more, you know, fear-inducing. So I do think it's one of those things that if you haven't already landed on it, it's worth brainstorming a few different options and, you know, coming up with stuff, bouncing around with friends. You know, there are always going to be people who think, oh, that's stupid. I mean, and things that are famous that have stuck with us for a long time, maybe when they were first mentioned to somebody, the other person receiving them would have said, oh, that's just stupid. I mean, who's going to call a band the Beatles? What? You know?
Right. That did happen, didn't it? The Beatles, what a stupid name. Yeah, well, think about word of mouth advertising, right? What is your title going to stick in somebody's head? So I say, hey, hey, Kathryn, I'm reading this really great book. It's called True Grit. It's called Sophie's Choice. It's called Drown. It's called Swamplandia, right? Yeah. You want
Tuesdays with Maury. Yeah, it's got a ring to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because you're more likely to remember that than the author's name.
Oh, definitely.
Unless you become a fan of the author, and obviously you're widely reading that particular author.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And today, because of e-devices, we don't have books sitting around our house as much as we used to. Well, unless you're me and probably you guys. But, you don't see this every time you enter your bedroom or your living room or coffee table. And so you're like, what am I reading now? It's that, space opera with the android and the... Right? You've got to go back to the beginning to check out the title. Yeah. So you could make an argument that titles are even more important now. You want them to land in your reader's mind and make an impression because we aren't visually grabbing that title every time we pick up our book.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I must admit, I'm rereading the Expanse books again, just because they were good the first time and I ripped through them too fast. And if there's one thing I dislike about that series, it's the titles. They drive me nuts. They don't mean anything. I can't see the meaning to the story. I can't remember which book is which in the series. There's no, this is book 1, this is book 2, this is book 5. It's just, interestingly named. You'd probably guess it was science fiction from the title, but it's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but anyway. They're intriguing enough that I could probably remember a couple of them, but maybe only if I've only recently read them. So they're kind of clever titles that don't necessarily roll off the tongue either.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my wife is reading, she's doing it on an audiobook, and she keeps raving about the narrator. She's played me a little bit. It's fantastic. Secret Life of Bees, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
And that's a nice title. That's obviously going to be something that's a little bit more maybe literary, intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Crawdads Sing. I mean? Well, there's a title for you. And as an Australian, I've got no idea what a crawdad is. So I think, okay, I wonder what that's about.
Do you know what a crayfish is?
They don't even sing.
Right.
Yeah, right, okay. Really? So I would have imagined it was a bird.
Okay, right, yeah, because of singing. Yeah. Interesting.
Do I know what a crayfish is? Yeah, it's like a crustacean, yes?
Yeah. Right. So crawdad is just a regional name for crayfish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they don't even sing?
No, because they're crustaceans. They're in the water.
So it's a more intriguing title for an American. It's just a quirky title for somebody outside of that region. Mm-hmm. Would most Americans know the word crawdad? Would they know that that's the regional name for crayfish in wherever it is?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's common enough that you could expect almost anybody to get it,
And to sort of know that they're talking about North Carolina.
I wouldn't know North Carolina specifically until I got into the Carolinas
story. Or the southern part of the Atlantic seaboard.
Right.
I think
southern.
I
would
kind of get a regional, like a regional feel, and you kind of know what they're talking about, the kind of place that creature would exist in. So,
well, we have
and then the juxtaposition between singing and crawdads kind of makes you go, okay,
intrigue.
There's something funny going on here.
Yes. Yep.
Right. It's not normal.
Right.
And so it is a parochial title, and so and which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you've written a book with a very American flavour and you want that to come through, then you say, okay, I'll take the risk that people who are out in the rest of the world may see the title and think it unusual,
Right.
That will be enough for them to pick it up and then say read the back cover, or on online read the blurb, and maybe get them there from there. Whereas in America, it sounds like most people would be familiar or have heard the word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's like A Man Called Uva, which we were talking about on the reading episode. Simon & Schuster, I think, published it in America, and I looked to see how you pronounce the name after I read the book. So I read the whole book calling him Ove, and then I searched for it, and they actually put out a little 1-minute video on YouTube, Simon & Schuster did, of how to pronounce the name. So asking people, how do you say this word? And then at the end, revealing it for you that it's Uva, right? And if it weren't such a well-received book that already had critical reviews and reader reviews from Sweden and so much already backing its movement into translation, you might be tempted to change the name to something more English-sounding for a wider audience to get all the English-speaking countries, you know. Jack, A Man Called Jack, or...
You want to find a name that kind of signifies some grumpy old bugger.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's important, though, is you want your reader to not stumble over your title, right? So if they're trying to say it to somebody else, if they're, I'm reading this great book and I know it, but I'm embarrassed to say it out loud because I don't think I can pronounce it right, or I don't even know what that word is, stumbling block, eliminate.
Right.
Hello, big fancy writers.
Yes.
I know, right?
Yeah, no, that's
Which
true.
Which series is that? Oh, it's the first just minutes.
Yes, place names in science fiction.
What's the main character's name? Grinkor.
Grizzle Liquor Marsh. Yep.
Sorry, people. We couldn't help ourselves. It's just as bad in the science fiction.
We've been shut in for too long. Getting a little slap happy.
What are they called? They're called the
Oh God, I watched an interview with the screenwriter who wrote the film script for Ted Ching's story, The Story of Your Life, right? That became Arrival. Yeah. And he was telling the interviewer, I think he was talking to his wife and saying, the language of the aliens, I need to describe to the, directors and whoever would design those visuals what this language is like. But he was pausing his script to put in these giant info dumps telling you it's like this ink that goes like this, and then there are these tails and these whatever. And his wife said, well, what is it like? And so he drew it. And she said, well, just put that in the script. So he just did a graphic in the script, right? Which, okay, I've got to connect this to title. So remember when Prince couldn't go by Prince anymore, so he became the symbol? It was the artist formerly known as Prince is what we had to verbally call him. So when you title your books, don't do that to your readers, right?
Right.
What is the title of your book? It's
symbol.
Black circle with ink splotches kind of squiggling around it.
Well, you look at something majorly successful like George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones. That's just fantastic.
Yeah,
it's
a good
so
title.
Epic, so epic. And even Sword of Fire and Ice. I mean, how many copies have we seen of that style of title? Sword of Blood and Bone. They're all evocative. That sort of style of thing. Sarah J. Maas, I think, has got some really good book titles as well. So they definitely evoke a particular feeling. And the worst thing I think that we can do is name them bland things that aren't semantically packed.
Right.
So for example, The Table. So, okay, is this an Excel study book, or is it
right?
Or is it people having dinner? Whereas if you said the dinner table, okay, well now maybe, this is something that's got some literary feel to
Yeah.
it. Or I said the holy table or the festive table. So I think, we can create evocative matches by packing things together.
Yes.
It fascinates me. It really does.
Yeah. The dinner table sounds like a short story title. That sounds like a really good short story title, but maybe it wouldn't actually carry a novel.
No,
that's interesting to think about. Yeah. Yeah. Bum. Yeah. We've crossed the threshold. Maybe jumped the shark on this one.
With the dinner table, I did spend a lot of time with the setting.
The place setting.
Yes. But then you got Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. I mean, that is
a great title. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is packed. Yeah. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? That's a good title. Thinking of literary genre, dialogue heavy, that, very kind of sarcastic, twisted jokiness.
Well, smashing two ideas together, like, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Where the Crawdads Sing. So you've got juxtapositions there that don't make sense initially. Right. So Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Why would I be afraid of a Virginia Woolf? Who's Virginia Woolf anyway?
Right. And you immediately think of Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. So who's the wolf in this story, and what are we actually afraid of? There
we go.
Okay. Did we just run out of steam?
Titles are hard, man.
They are.
This is why I am so like, I don't even give my stuff working titles because it bothers me too much. So play around with all sorts of different things. But I like this because it feels like, okay, like I can dig deep, look at my theme, look at my setting, look at my genre, and just start pulling elements until I feel like, hey, there we go. That's it. Like, that is what my story is about.
Yes, right? I feel like the title is always somewhere within the story. So if you don't have it, like that bolt of lightning moment, it's in there.
Definitely.
My current book is called The Evelyn Book. My working title is The Evelyn Book. Yeah. The Poisonwood Bible, Barbara Kingsolver, she said in her author's note at the back that she referred to it as That Damn Africa Book. So its working title was the DAB for That Damn Africa Book, and you just go with it until that title emerges from your process.
We did that with our daughter. So people knew we were having a girl. People knew we were having a girl, and they said, "Oh, so have you got a name in mind?" And we said, "Yes, we do." And they said, "Oh, great, what is it?" We said, "TBA." And they said, what does that stand for then? And we said, "The baby, actually."
The baby, actually. That's good. I thought you were going to say to be announced.
I know.
That baby, actually.
It was a wordplay. Yeah,
there's a twist.
We both loved the wordplay. So we actually bought, how you can get the letters of, baby names and things and spell them out. So we had her real name ready. So we had already the letters for Isabel, but on the door of the bedroom and everywhere it was TBA everywhere. It's hilarious. It was quite a good gag for 9 months.
That is hilarious.
People tried to pry. So what is it? Does it have one of those letters in it? No, it's the baby actually. So it was a great way of just deflecting any conversation about. So what do you think the name's going to be? Because people have such strong opinions about names.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Anyway, which is the same with your book title as well. You are going to get people saying, "Oh, I don't like that," but that's okay.
Right.
You just need 90% of people to get what it's about.
Yes. Yeah. It's never a bad idea. Well, when you just know it's the right title. Yeah. Right. Step back, people.
You kind of got to go.
But but if you have any doubt, it doesn't hurt to run it past trusted friends who are going to be honest and, See if it's not landing with people, or if it's confusing or too abstract or something.
Well, we have to find a whole load of kind of mid-list book titles, so they're not generally well known, but they're obviously well-read books, and just see if we can run the titles past each other and deduce what they're about. It'd be interesting.
That would be fun. Okay, listeners, Storyworks Writers Facebook group, send us your mid-list titles. Get the list to us, and we'll
fun conversation.
Yes. Thank you for listening to the Storyworks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.